Now, content and answering techniques. This is where now I have to tell you. Content and answering techniques in C.R.E. paper 2. How should you be answering C.R.E. paper 2? Number 1 is numbering. Numbering. You have to be composed when you get into the exam in such a way that you read the questions very well. You should know that in paper 2, just like paper 1, we have 6 questions, and a student always should follow instructions, and you're being told to answer any 5 questions. So if you're told to answer any 5 questions, already you know number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. So if you've decided to choose number 1 as your first question, and that is whatever you're going to do, you have just to write it as number 1. Students sometimes, this particular student is answering number 1, and he or she is thinking of number 2. So you find yourself writing number 1 as number 2, and you're not aware you're writing number 1 as number 2, and you've given answers very well. Number 2A, you've answered very well. That is number 1A. Number 2B, number 1B. Number 2C, number 1C. You have answered wrongly. Numbering. Yes, you have answered correctly. You are answering question 1, but you have numbered number 2. So for me, you are making my work easy. I'm following instructions. These are not answers for question 2. So you have to make sure you answer and number your work very well. If it is number 1 that you have chosen, write it as number 1. And as you are choosing question, you don't have to start from number 1. And the reason as to why we are saying that you don't have to start from number 1. Maybe you have gone through the questions, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. And maybe number 6, question 6 is your best. And you have already done your math down there, that in question 6, you are going to get at least 18 out of 20. So we always advise our students that choose your questions wisely and number it wisely. If you've started with number 6, write it as number 6. You can start with any question, even number 5, even number 3. But don't forget that you have started with number 3. You go to your question paper, you have started with number 3, write number 3A. Answer your work very well. Then you go to 3B. Why do we tell the students not to start with number 1? We tell our students not to start with number 1 as examiners because you are enticing the marker. This might be a very good student in C.R.E, but because maybe question 1, you have chosen 5, and question 1 is amongst that the 5 that you've chosen. But number 1 is not your best. Number 1 is not your best. As I'll be marking, I'll already have, remember the human beings are the ones who are marking your papers. So as I'll be marking, I'll already have said, this student is already not performing very well. So you've already made me get some idea about you. Entice the marker. The marker is a human being. Start with your best question. If your best question is number 5, then your second best is number 6, then your third best is number 3, then another one is number 2, then another one is number 1. So you write them like that. You start with number 6, you number well, 6A, 6B, 6C. Then you go to number 5, 5A, 5B, 5C. So here we tell students to answer to entice the marker. And also to make you have a lot of strength as you are answering, the points are there and they are flowing. So you should go through all the questions as you choose the ones you want to attempt to. So here I always tell my students and the examiners, use the first 15 minutes to select questions, and you write down short answers which you will choose. Use the first 15 minutes. It's even easier. 15 minutes look like it's a whole lot of minutes. It's not. This is what will help you to deduce which number are you starting with. And you do it very fast within the first 15 minutes. Choose the first question that you are going to attempt to. After attempting and reading the questions very well and going through them, take the first 15 minutes, because 5 is so little. Going through question 1 to question 6. Remember, this is C.R.E. Question 1 to question 6. So you put your points down. You will already know that question 6, I know I'll be able to get around 17. Question 5, I can get 13. Question 2, I can get 12. So you know very well if question 6 is your best, you start with it and it will give you marks. So first 15 minutes, sit down, organize yourself, organize your thoughts, then you can be able now to start writing. And another thing why we say 15 minutes, after choosing your questions, you will already organize your mind in such a way that you will not go back again now to your answer script. As you now do number 1, you'll not rap. You'll not now cross it and say that, I can't attempt number 1. It is now difficult. You've already chosen your questions very well in such a way that you don't make your work dirty. The work is clean. You're already organized. The numbering is very perfect. Use in both for similarities and whereas for differences. That one is in answering techniques. I've talked about it. When you're giving differences giving incidences according to St. Luke's Gospel, I expect you as students right now to have read St. Luke's Gospel very many times. I can't say 7 or 10, but very many times, because St. Luke's Gospel is not very big or large. You're supposed to have read St. Luke's Gospel from Luke chapter 1, Luke chapter 2, because I saw a question that a student was asked to describe the event when Jesus healed the demon-possessed man, the demon-possessed man, according to Luke chapter 4, from verse 3 to onwards. So in this particular place, there are very many demon-possessed people in the Bible, especially in the Luke's Gospel. We have the Beelzebul, we have the Legion, we have a woman who was bent over because of an evil spirit. We have a man also who had a demon spirit. And here students always confused when they are set for a contextual question and a verse has been given and they're not conversant with the particular verse. So St. Luke's Gospel, because when you're told to give the incidents or describe the healing of the demon-possessed man according to Luke chapter 4, here is where after Jesus went to the synagogue, Jesus preached so well with authority and made people have a lot of faith in him. And later on, there was a demon-possessed man who realized that was Jesus and asked Jesus if Jesus had come to torment them. And Jesus commanded the devil to come out of the man. And as the devil was coming out of the demon was coming out of the man, this man fell down and did not even injure himself. And people were amazed of how Jesus could heal or could rebuke a demon and it comes out of this particular person. So when I'm talking about giving incidences according to St. Luke's Gospel, you as a student, you're supposed to have known all the verses according to St. Luke's Gospel. Then it is better and advisable to answer in paragraph form. What am I saying? To answer in paragraph form. I've already talked about continuous prose. I've talked about statement form. Now I'm talking about paragraph form. In paragraph form, I mean, as you're answering, make sure even stating, like in the first particular question, when you're told to give the names that Isaiah gave to the Messiah, the names that, or you can be told to state or list the names that Isaiah gave to the Messiah. A student can be able to, a student maybe might have given Prince of Peace, then you say another name like John. You just give a name that is not there. Then the third point, you have given mighty God. Then you go to Emmanuel. When you give in paragraph form, we always mark continuously. We will not count the points because I'm going to question, I'm going to the type of questions when we talk about closed questions and open-ended questions. So here I'm saying that a student, it is for a student, it is better for you to answer in paragraph form. Give your answers in paragraph. You can give 1 point, put a comma, give another point, put a comma, give another point, put a comma, until you can give many points, but I'm not saying you give as many as 80 or 30 or 20. Because we know very well that in C.R.E, you can the highest number of marks you can be given for a question are around 8. So you know you can't give more than, let's say, even you won't even reach 12 or even 10. But in between here, we will just give you the 8. We'll just mark continuously. The wrong ones, we are going to leave them. That's why it's better for you to give in paragraph form. If you give numbers, when you number, the first point might be wrong, the second point might be wrong, the third point might be wrong. If the fourth and fifth point are correct, you are not given. I'm saying if you number and the first point is correct, is wrong, the second point is wrong, the third point is wrong, then the fourth and the fifth points are correct, you will not be given points. That is why I always discourage students from numbering your work. And by numbering, I mean using Roman numbers, using A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3. Don't even use hyphen to answer. Just answer directly. The way as I was giving you the answers to my questions, I also gave you in that order so that you see the way you're supposed to be answering. When you're giving for example, you've been told to describe the parable of the Good Samaritan. A paragraph can even have 2 points. A man was going for a journey from Jerusalem to Jericho. On his way, he was attacked by armed robbers. That is the first particular, attacked by armed robbers and left half dead. That is the first paragraph. The second paragraph, you continue talking about the same particular story. The first man passed, and we always know the Jew passed, looked at the man and left. Then the second man, the Levite passed, looked at the man and left. That is the second paragraph. The third paragraph can be, when the Good Samaritan came, he took the man, anointed he washed the wound with, he anointed the wound with oil. And then he set the man on the donkey and took the man in an inn and asked the innkeeper that when he comes back, he's going to take care of the extra charges. So you can be able to separate your paragraphs. The first 2 points can be in the one paragraph so that you avoid that monotony. Because if a paragraph is packed, if it's one paragraph that is packed, it is a bit difficult because seeing the points sometimes can be difficult. So when you organize your work in a very good way, in such a way that you are in different paragraphs, then your work should be neat and clean. This one, we talk about the first impression, handwriting, you have to be clear. Don't rub so much. Don't rub, and just avoid rubbing because you've already organized yourself. The first 15 minutes, you've already organized yourself. So be neat, be clean, make sure your work is good, enticing to the particular examiner that is going to mark your paper. So when we are giving our lessons that are learned, we have to repeat ourselves. When you've been told to give lessons Christians learn from the choosing of the 12 disciples, one of them is that Christians learn that we should have faith. Christians learn we should be obedient when they are called, and the rest. So when you don't be tired of saying Christians. Some of our students always say they should learn. The word they. Remember the question, what do Christians learn from the calling of or the choosing of the 12 disciples? You've been told Christians. They have not told what do they learn. What do they learn from the 12 choosing of the 12 disciples? They have not said they. It's Christians. So when you are giving your answers, you're supposed to say Christians learn that. Don't get tired of saying Christians. Repeat yourself. If you just say they, we will only mark the points where you have said Christian. And if those points are correct, you'll get. But if they are wrong, we'll not give you. But you have to teach yourself to repeat yourselves. Christians learn that. Christians learn that. Another question can be asked about what Christians learn from Jesus. What Christians learn from Jesus. Or what we learn from Jesus. So here we have been told what we learn from Jesus. Jesus, the question there is Jesus. So Jesus is the Savior. Jesus chooses anyone. Still from the call, Jesus has power over nature in the choosing, in the calming of the storm. So when the question is asking about what Christians learn, answer the question, it is Christians. When the question is asking about Jesus, What we learn from Jesus, it is Jesus now, not Christians. What we learn from God, especially attributes of God, what Christians learn, especially in paper 1, that is what they asked. What we learn from God in a particular story, you should answer, it is God. God is the provider. God is omniscient. God is, so don't start now that Christians, if you start as Christians learn that God, you've been told what we learn from God. God, what we learn from God, the character God. So the particular question, the way the question asked, what Christians learn from a story, from the story of the choosing of the 12 disciples. The character there is Christians. What Christians learn from Jesus, the character there is Jesus. What we learn from God, the character there is God. So you're supposed to repeat yourself, God, 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 until the end. So that is content and answering techniques that I've tackled